Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Hi, I'm Richert Belul, author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And so excited today to have Deborah and Karen here as our guest authors. And welcome to everyone else who's here today. And we're going to be talking about getting in the creative flow and especially how to do that in challenging times. So glad you guys are here. And why don't we start, Karen, with you and just have you introduce yourself, hold up your book so people can see your book and hear the title. And then maybe let us know some ways or, your favorite way that you've been taking care of yourself right now during these times.
Okay, so my book is Overcoming Creative Anxiety, Journal Prompts and Practices for Disarming Your Inner Critic and Allowing Creativity to Flow. And this came out Mango in June 16th, I think it was.
New.
Yeah. So it's relatively new. And I'm probably like one of the weirdos when it comes to creativity, but like we're all weirdos, I think, when it comes to creativity. But like, it's often not like this blissful state of flow. I mean, sometimes it's like, and like just sort of recognizing that you can build in, like I do, like I have built procrastination into my process. Mm-hmm. So, but there oftentimes it feels awful. And like just learning to accept that and be like, okay, this is the awful part.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And say some more about, so yeah, how do you manage that awful part?
Sometimes by crying.
Love it. Go on.
I have a bit of a smart ass part. But yeah, sometimes crying, sometimes yelling, sometimes being grumpy. But just letting it all be what it is. Like, don't fight it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering, is that also your answer to how you've been taking care of yourself during these times? Like those same,
yeah.
just like
you gotta let it be what it is, right? I mean, yeah. Our emotion, like I sort of see emotions as being our greatest resource. And so when you allow, and but we're like, you can't selectively feel, right? You can't just feel the good things and not feel the bad things. So when you let yourself feel all, right, and literally feel and literally process, right, you're taking care of yourself. But this isn't something we've ever been taught, and in fact, it's something we're actively encouraged, or it's actually like it's discouraged from us developing that skill of literally feeling the awful sensations that we don't like.
Wow.
That's how I take care of myself.
Wow. That's great. Thank you. I love that you just launched us off with all of that. Like, I feel like you've just created sort of this wonderful, like, room of acceptance right now, right? So anything goes, right? Well, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about your book specifically, but let's have Deb say hi and hold up your book and tell us how you've been taking care of yourself.
Okay, wait. I first have to like comment on what Karen just said, because I'm totally with you. The only difference is I like limit the amount of time I'm allowed to be frustrated and annoyed, because I'm like, okay, my 2 minutes are up, back to business, because it really is, and I will introduce myself, I promise. It's like now, it's like everybody, and it's months later, and everybody is still in shock. And like, what's going to happen next? What am I going to do? And at this point, people are, I guess, getting that this is normal and we're not reverting back. But even if it's like once a day for a couple minutes, and I'll be honest, this cheery demeanor is like me 98% of the time, and it's genuine. This is just the way that I have chosen to approach things, live my life, et cetera, et cetera. Every now and then I get really annoyed and and then I say, okay, Deb, enough. back to work, back to business, back to what brings me joy, because I'm a big believer in the whole law of attraction. So little bits and annoyance and frustration, great, but more than little bits, at least for me, I'm like, I don't want to tell the universe that. I want the universe to know that I am okay, which I am, which is a really good transition into who I am. So there we go. So I'm Deborah Eckerling. I am the author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals. And this beautiful mango book came out in January, and who knew that 2 months later, everybody would need to replan, rethink their life. So I feel, first of all, incredibly blessed to be here, and thank you. And thank you to everybody else who's here joining as well. The rest of me, I am a goal setting expert. So I help people figure out what they want and how to get it, and basically to embrace change so you can move forward, because that's really what stops people from achieving their goals. They overthink them or they underthink them, and they don't have a plan. So I'm the founder of the DEB method, and that's my system. It's determine your mission, explore your options, brainstorm your path. So these, and it works for personal as well as professional goals, reevaluating your life. It actually, I like put it on top of everything, and it works because you need to start with that mission. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Okay, and then explore your options. How is it going to manifest itself? Brainstorm your path, turning it into reality. So that's basically the first half of my book in like 30 seconds, but and it's just now, and for me, I just like jumped right in. My book came out in January, and then in March, people started asking me to speak online because everything shut down. Deb, can you do this online? Can you do your goal setting workshop? Yes. So I feel incredibly blessed that my book is such a tool for the now, and who knew?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, how have you been taking care of yourself during this time?
Well, I am a firm believer in balance. And I think that the biggest thing that we need to do now is to have a structure like it's real life, which means you stop work at a certain time at night, you limit your work on the weekends, which I've been working from home for years. So, and I 80% of the time subscribe to this. And back when things were normal, if I had to work on the weekend, I would take a weekday off. Now things are a lot more balanced, where there are few things on the weekends, but a lot of events and opportunities during the week. So I don't have to do that as often. But I think that the more normal we can make our lives, the more normal this new normal is going to seem. And we have to, at some point, stop looking at our phone. We cannot be looking at our emails at 10 o'clock at night and expect to get a good night's sleep.
Wow.
We can't work every single day, all day, and feel refreshed. You can't. So that's like my biggest tip. Can I give my 2 minor tips?
Of course you may, yes.
Okay. First of all, dance breaks are essential. So even if it's 5 minutes, like if I'm about to go online or talk to a client or whatever, just to like get the energy up, or it's, okay, my day is slumpy, Alexa, play me X music, boom, 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 and then it's back to work. So it really is good for the mood and the spirit. The other thing that I love, and I started loving to cook a couple years ago, I guess I was preparing, who knew? And it also helps with the stopping work. If I go a few days without cooking, I get cranky.
Oh.
So I try to, and I'm not like this big chef person. I mean, I like make like chicken, comfort food, pizza, chicken pot pie, soup, whatever it is, but to like step away, because you cannot be connected while you are cooking. You can't. Your hands get dirty and it's whatever.
Oh,
it's like
you can't be connected online, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's another way to manage not overdoing, because that's the thing now, is everybody needs balance, they need flow, they need energy, and it's really a matter of figuring out what works for you and then doing more of that.
Wow. Yeah, I love that you're everything that you just talked about, the dance and the getting off the phone at night and the cooking, all reminders that we have to get off screen. That's so great.
Well, the other part too is Facebook, and I love it. Most of my online presence is there because, I have a Facebook Live show, I've got groups, I've got pages. Um, I can only be on it like actually reading through feeds for short periods of time because everybody is struggling, and I feel for them. I don't have kids, so I'm not going through the torture a lot of my friends are with school, and I'm like, my heart goes out to everybody who has to juggle or tell their disappointed kid that they're not going to real life school or whatever, or the news. I mean, let's not even get into the news. I think we need to read and watch enough so we're informed, but not so much that it takes us to the dark place along with them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you, Deb. I'm gonna head back to Karen.
Oh, please.
Yeah, let's and then I'll come back to you too about your book a little bit more. But I'd love to hear, Karen, like whatever's top of your mind. I know that we said we're going to talk about creative flow, and let's talk especially in terms of how people are in a particular, mindset right now because of the pandemic. But what would you love to talk to us about?
Well, it's funny. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing right now. I've got this ball.
Yes. What are you doing?
And I noticed that I started to feel a little anxious as we were talking.
Yeah.
And I learned this technique just this past weekend. And it's a great way to reduce anxiety. So I just decided, and so what you do is you basically keep one hand center line, pass the ball, center line, center line, center line, center line. And yeah, it's actually, it helps break up neural bundles. And again, I am no scientist, but I've been really dabbling, and what's top of mind for me in the past, well, year, but definitely in the past several months, is understanding how we can work with our nervous systems instead of against our nervous systems. In really simple ways that aren't like, okay, go do yoga for an hour and then meditate for an hour and then all that. But just really simple ways to understand when you so we have our sympathetic and our parasympathetic. Our sympathetic nervous system is, when healthy, right? It's what is the foot on the gas. It's our motivation. It's our get up and go. It's our muscles literally gathering their energy to do. Under threat, that's where we get fight and flight. Our parasympathetic, right, is the foot on the gas, rest and digest, when we're just sort of healthy and having our parasympathetic response, we're chilled out, we're sleeping, we're relaxing, etc. Under threat, that's where we freeze. And then what I love is that the nervous system experts have determined that fawning is the fourth F. So you've got fight and flight, and now we have freeze and fawn, fawning being people pleasing.
Oh.
And people pleasing, right, it can be a nervous system response to perceived threat, right? Got to make sure everything's okay. Everybody's okay, right? And so anyway, understanding that there are emotional cues that go along with perceived threat on both sides, right? Like Deborah was talking about, sometimes you feel a little bit of frustration sometimes. And that is an indication that, not all the time, but that your fight, flight, your sympathetic has been activated, you're perceiving some threat, and then, it might ramp up to, frustration, and then annoyance, and then anger, and and then could be full on rage, right? Those are emotional cues that that side has been activated because of perceived threat. And then on the other side, the emotional cues would be a feeling of confusion, maybe overwhelmed, and then, moving into like collapse and, I mean, literally, but this is when people faint.
Yeah.
Right. So like, and shame is over on that side too. So like what I love to play with is the idea that when you notice yourself having, one or the other, like that sort of anger side or the overwhelmed side, that there are practices you can do to calm that reaction and be like, oh gosh, my nervous system is activated. It's not that, something has necessarily gone wrong. It's like my nervous system is just perceiving threat. And then, so then there's like things like this.
Wait, and I love this because you don't know this, but on my paper I wrote down practices because I wanted to ask each of you, and it's like you kind of knew, even though we didn't even talk about that, but I did want to ask each of you if there are some actual practices that you would talk about, and you just sort of naturally brought in this one that you're doing right now. Do you have another one before we go back to Deb? Do you have another one to offer?
Yes. I have several, and they're in this book. But one of my favorite ones is, and this is for when you're feeling overwhelmed and wanting to like, hide. And it's, I don't know how well it'll work, but I'll try. You want to verbalize or sort of chant the syllable VOO, V-O-O, and you want to feel it as low down into your gut as you can. And it sounds like this. And if you want to get fun with it, you can add in some like snarling face and like clawing motion, because what this does is activates predator energy, which is that sympathetic side. Doesn't mean you're going to go kill somebody. It just means that you're like getting yourself out of that like overwhelmed feeling. And it's incredible. Like whenever I teach I do this so much with my clients that I actually don't have to practice it on my own because I'm doing it with them. So
can we we can all close our eyes when we do it, but I think it'd be fun if we all tried it. Can you lead us?
Sure. Do you want to do the face?
Yeah, of course we do. We want to do the snarls, but
Joe really wants to do this. I can tell Joe is like, I can't wait to do this.
That's why we're going to close our eyes. So if anybody doesn't want to do it, they don't have to do it. We won't have to know. All right.
So it's going to be weird because you're only going to hear yourself. You're not going to hear everybody else. Okay, so you ready? Yeah, Joe didn't do it.
You're not supposed to tell on him. The whole point of closing our eyes was.
Yeah, but we're going to see the video later.
I was going to say, this is all for us, except it's being recorded.
God. That was fun.
You're gonna have to edit that part out, Sherry.
Okay, we're gonna come back, but let's go see what Deb, what's on your mind around all this?
Awesome. I think anytime you can make noise and get energy out of your body, and hence the aforementioned dance break, is like a good day. Activity, whatever. Well, I have a couple things I love, but I'm gonna start by expanding a little bit about what Karen was talking about. We're all like connected to the computer. If you need to remind yourself to take breaks, if you need alarms or timers or whatever to remind you to get up and move around, I'm overly conscious of it because, I've been, and I feel like I should not, in the past I've had issues with my neck and my back from being on the computer too much. Usually I will, even if I just stand up every 20 minutes, I'll stand up every 20 minutes because, I don't need problems. So it's kind of like ingrained in me, and and this is a different tangent. I'm a huge fan of, you make appointments with yourself. A lot of people call it time blocking. One of the things I talk about in my book, back to keeping a schedule, I make appointments basically for everything I do during the day, because it helps feel a sense of accomplishment, because you can go all week and be like, what did I do? But if you're tracking it, you can look and say, oh, I did this, this, and this, yay me. But in between these workabouts, especially since, and I'm pretty sure most of the audience is writers, we're tied in. We're always working on something. We're rarely at a loss of things to write or work on, or projects or whatever, but we need these reminders. Okay, you've been at your computer for 3 hours. And while that's really fun sometimes to be like at one with your muse and let all the words spill out of you, you really shouldn't do it that often, because it's not good for your body. So take breaks, the dance breaks, move around. Even if you're just like walking around your home or apartment once or twice, and then get back to work, or get a cup of coffee, or have a 5-minute phone call. But like, schedule breaks as much as you schedule work. So that's one thing. Now, my favorite thing for anxiety, and I know I'm going to get lots of nods for this, yes, Deb, journaling. Because when you get things out on paper, you're taking it out of your body, and it's going to help you feel free, less weighted, whatever it is. But it's sort of like, in the simplest version, if you like have a to-do list and you don't want to forget to put something on it, but you keep it in your head, you're like holding on to it. But when you write it down, I'm like, oh, it's right here. I'm not going to forget it. I don't have to think about it. And that's the same way, especially with all the emotions. And if you haven't had a range of emotions that's like the spectrum since March, what's wrong with you? I mean, and for me, like I said, I've been really busy since this started because of what I do, which is help people figure out their goals and reconfigure their paths. So I have not been bored at all. And I know it's something a lot of people can't relate to. Yes, I take time off. I love my Netflix. I like to, cook, take breaks. But there are a lot of people who are like still stewing, which is terrible. So when you journal, you can use it for a lot of things. So one is to release the pressure and the emotions. I also like to use journaling as problem solving. So one of the things that I talk about in my book, in your goal guide, a huge part of the Deb method is directed journaling. And that's when you schedule 3, 4, 5, 15-minute sessions with yourself, but you're journaling about something specific. So whether it's, what is my mission? What is my reboot? How do I figure out the podcast I want to start? What thing can I create to make the world better? Whatever it is, you're like basically free writing for 15 minutes on whatever subject, whether it's a decision or something you're trying to solve or something you're just trying to work out, or even if it's something you're trying to work out emotionally. But just brainstorm, throw everything on the paper. But the trick is not to read your brainstorms until you've done it 3, 4, 5 times, because when you go back and read it, especially when it's being used to figure out a project or problem solving, you're going to find patterns in there. So let's say you're trying to decide, let's say your job went away, very common problem right now, and you're trying to decide whether you want to find a job or start a side project. And that's, what do I do next is the question. And that's all you're writing, and it's coming directly from your head, your subconscious. You don't know where it's going to go. Then after doing this, you could say, I mentioned this like 7 times. It's a job I want, but not what I'm doing. What do I need to do to make it happen? So you look at the things that you write about the most. It's what you're most drawn to. It's going to be what you're most passionate about. What you're most passionate about is what you're going to be driven to make happen. So again, journaling, problem solving, figuring out your life plan, or just getting the emotions out of you. It's like the all-purpose cure.
I love that. I want to just check in and see if, and it can be you as well, Karen, but if anybody who's here also wants to hop in and talk about whether it's creativity or anxiety, anything about journaling, what we've just talked about.
And journaling is great for creativity because when you're figuring out whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever it is, you can like go nuts because they're your words and you get to play with them. I mean, come on.
I love that. Rachel, did you have something? Was that a hand raise?
Yeah, I love everything that's being said. I mean, because it all goes right where my energy is right now, which I love when that happens. Because, you know, a lot of the work I'm doing right now is aligning with love, abundance, and peace. Because my focus is getting my energy to the change I want to see. So everything I do is aimed at. So with the journaling, I do the 15 minutes every day. I have my timer that goes off where I get into my gratitude journal. I do my journaling, and just to make sure I'm aligned. And then, you know, on my blog, I'm doing, and on my Facebook page, I'm doing the daily alignment so people can come along with me. So it's just everything you guys said, and it's true about the, you know, really feeling your feelings. Though, if I am feeling something, I'm not going to deny that I'm feeling that, because that's going to stick. That's the energy that's in there. So I have to be authentic with it and let it out. And so I love that tip with the ball, because I've used tips like that with my daughter for different things, but I've never seen that one. I'm like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Marlena.
Oh, I was just going to say that I really appreciate what Deborah said about the law of attraction. I think we underestimate hugely how important our intentions are and how we show up in the world, and that's going to affect what shows up in our lives. And it's just, it's important to a lot of the other things that have been said as well, but it's sort of an underlying foundational piece that I wanted to highlight.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Marlene, and thank you, Rachel. And hi, Brenda, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
She's in Troyville again.
Yes.
Karen, were you going to say something, Karen?
Yes, and I forgot what it was.
We'll never tell.
It was about the ball, I think. It was about the exercise.
Oh, just that, I mean, if you've ever heard, you know, in therapeutic circles, EMDR or like they have the buzzer thing that they use in therapy. It's the same, except without the therapist.
I'm not familiar with EMDR.
It's something like eye movement eye movement desensitization something. And it's this thing where like they have a like a light, or sometimes they use their finger, and the light goes back and forth, and you watch the light go back and forth as you sort of recount or talk about whatever it is that's bothering you, going on, or a memory or whatever. And it's kind of magic. But it's bilateral stimulation. It's the same thing.
Yeah, Marlena.
It's desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
Is what the I is in it. Yeah, it's very powerful.
It is very powerful. I've done that in therapy, actually. So I'll just say one thing that did pop into my mind, and you know, I might be like maybe the only person on the call, maybe even in this country, who is like this, but I don't have a to-do list and I don't use a planner.
Wow, say more. Tell us more.
And I don't know, like I can't tell you more. I mean, all I can tell you is that you know, I've accomplished a lot in my life. And you know, I like see the pretty planners and I'm like, oh, and I go buy it, and then I'm like, meh. Every once in a while I'll have a to-do list, but it basically is just like hits like the big things that are going on. Like in June, I think it was, I had a lot of projects going on. And so I just had them listed, the projects listed, but that's it.
So
That's, that's
so you wake up in the morning and just whatever.
Well, yeah, and I do have a schedule. I mean, I do have some structure, but it's like if I had to schedule my writing at 3 o'clock or whatever, I like, no, that doesn't work for me. I don't schedule it. I like to have day. I think that there are, you know, and some days, some weeks I don't do as well as I'd like, but I'd like to have a day or two where there's nothing scheduled, and that's when I get into my flow. But there's like, the way it looks doesn't look productive. It doesn't look like you think it would look, whatever that is. So.
Ooh, can I respond, please?
Please, go ahead.
Please.
Come on.
Well, I have to tell you, usually this is how, when I start my workshops, I say something to the effect of, you know, people have trouble achieving their goals because they underthink them, they overthink them, they don't have a plan, most people can't figure things out in their head. I know there's some people who do. Now I know who does. I think that's great, and it really goes back to what I was talking about before. You know what works for you.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. I need a little schedule caveat, and then I want to go back to something Rachel said real quick. This is the way the appointments work in my world, is unless they're with other people, they're in my schedule. I do certain things every day, every other day, and the trick is you can move appointments, but you can never delete them. So I will get this morning I got a reminder of something I was going to do at 10:30, and I'm like, great, I'm going to do it later. So, you know, click and move it to 3:30. So things still stay. What?
I think I'd be deleting, sorry.
It works for you. No judgment. But for me and for most people, the visual cue, the way I coach people is I say, you do your big list for the week, then you put it on your calendar, and then if you need to move things around, great. I also think it's very important for most people to schedule that creative time. And I know, oh, how do you schedule creative time? You don't necessarily schedule that's the creative time, but if it's in there and you're like, oh, I wasn't creative today, or I didn't work on this passion project, or I need to do this, you get a little reminder, and it kind of sits in your head. And then later you're like, okay, I could do my creative stuff now. And then you do it, and then you write it into the calendar. So at the end of the week, when you thought you got nothing done, you could say, oh, look, I did this, this, and this. You know, gold stars for me. I had some huge wins. So the list, the schedule, especially now where so many people are so unscheduled, although Brenda's probably laughing. She's like, Dad, what does unscheduled mean? I don't understand this. But when you have the extra time, or I tell people, you don't commute to work anymore, or you don't have to go out to networking events, you have at least an hour a week that you get to spend doing whatever you want, because you don't have to sit in traffic, or you can do twice as many networking events because the time it would take to get to both of them, it's kind of canceled out. So those are my thoughts on appointments. Again, I now have an example of someone who doesn't set goals, and this example is a great example, and I love it. Thank you. The other thing that Rachel mentioned was using the timer, which is my favorite tool as well. And the timers can work in a couple different ways. If you have creative time, you're like, I don't feel like being creative today, you can set the timer for 15 minutes and say, I'm going to stare at my computer for 15 minutes. So I'm at least thinking, maybe I'll make a list, or I'll write out what groceries I need, or just some sort of creative prompt to kind of get your brain engine revving. And then when the timer goes off, if you're on a roll, you can keep going. But if you're stuck, you're like, I did my time, I'm good till tomorrow. So it's a really good way to kind of schedule creativity, to make sure that you're your brain, your thinking, what you want to be doing, the creative, the passion, those projects that don't get nearly enough time and energy, it's prioritizing them and saying, I can work on this a little bit, and that's great, and then maybe tomorrow I'll work on it a little bit more. The other reason I love the timer is it's good for things like phone calls. Let's say you really want to catch up with someone, you don't have that much time, you set the timer. You know, I'm so sorry, I have to go, but you don't get carried away. Social media, we need to be on social media to some extent, interacting, posting, whatever. But if you set a timer, okay, I've got these 15-minute social media appointments a couple times a day, it goes off, you get back to work. If you don't have a timer, you can jump on to do one thing, and next thing you know, it's lunch. So it also keeps you on task with yourself. So it was sort of like, you could, you know, dessert first, if you want to call it, or you're scheduling the little things that could take a lot of time, but when you only have 15 minutes, you get a lot more done because you know that as well.
Wow. I love this. And I love how, you know, we didn't realize, or I didn't realize, that you two would each come from these different places. And I think it's perfect, right? I think it's so
Pretty
wonderful.
awesome.
It's actually one of my favorite things about these groups is because we just never know, you know, what's going to happen. But I love when you were talking about, you know, putting something on the schedule, and even if we move it, I hate to do that myself. And I was talking to a coaching client today who said something very similar, which was he said he puts his yoga mat in the middle of the floor. And sometimes he's just walking over it all day long. Eventually he's like, oh, I should just do 15 minutes of yoga, right? It's the same sort of thing. If we're tripping over it in our schedule, I think we'll do it.
Can I use that example?
Sure.
I love that. That's great.
Yes. I know, it's a really good.
If you put the thing that you want to do, but you don't prioritize right in front of you, and again with Liz, you should have like your top, I mean, I'm not going to show you my wall, but believe it or not, I've got like Deb rules here and my big to-do list and reminders and notes everywhere, because you need them. I mean, you don't need them, but you need them. You know, when you have your eye on the prize of what you want to accomplish, if you give yourself the time and the attention to focus on the long-term goals, the things that are going to take a while, if you put the thing that brings you joy right in the middle of your living room, then it's going to help you do more of those things.
How are other people feeling? I'm wondering if anybody else. Oh, Linda. Yeah. And then Joe, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, Linda and then Joe.
Okay, well, I have a question, but first of all, I'll just say that I have a special gift for not seeing things that are right in front of me, so putting the yoga mat down would just not matter at all. I would keep walking right over it. I can not see things that I see every day very easily. So
Negative hallucination. A negative hallucination.
Yes. I have a question about, like, this is the first time ever in my life where I have given myself this time, months of time, to just create. It's my joy. I'm so happy doing it. But there's still this work, professional part of my brain that's like, but you didn't do enough. And yet creativity needs that breathing space, needs a breathing room for sometimes to just be outside, or I have a hummingbird feeder outside my window to just watch the hummingbirds because it makes me so happy. Yet I feel guilty about that. So do you guys have any tips for how to let go of that guilt? Because that's part of the creative process. And I know that intellectually, but I have a hard time giving myself that luxury.
You want to go first, Karen?
Sure. So in my book, the first part of the book is about learning who your inner critic is and really getting to know who that inner critic is and how they think and why they think and all the things they think and the sound of their voice and how they view the world. And there are questions like, you know, if you took your inner critic for a walk, what would they see? Or if you took your inner critic to a networking event, how would they show up there? I mean, that's just two. There's a lot of,
Yeah, but that immediately sounds really helpful to get to know
yeah,
it.
because right, like the critic, there's always a positive intention underneath. And we tend to think, no, how could there be a positive intention? But there always is. And when you, it's also, I sort of also consider it shadow work, where it's like we have this part of ourselves that we're like, oh God, if anybody knew that about me, right? I might as well just pack it all in now. And it's about bringing those parts out into the light and finding out what purpose they serve in a fun way, right? Like this isn't, it's about like taking the shame and the guilt out of it so that you can change it's like, the way I look at it is, we're human beings. We are designed and built to feel all the human emotions, and that includes guilt. So, you're going to continue to feel guilt, just so you know, and fear.
Thanks. Great.
But you can change your relationship to it.
Yes.
Right? And you can change your relationship to that critic. And so as the way I set this book up is that you get to know your inner critic, and then you cultivate and get to know and grow your inner advocate.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a couple of other sections in there in terms of, getting to know your creative self. Like, so you have your critic, you have your advocate, and then there's you, right? So that's how I would deal with it.
You're going to be completely shocked because my approach is totally different. Linda, first of all, you're doing great. And I want you to hear my voice every time that critic comes to visit, because it goes back to the positive thinking. You're doing what you need to do right now. And as much of it as you can do is progress, and it's awesome. And I'm thrilled for you. I'm very excited that you're giving yourself that gift of being creative right now. And I say just kind of stay the course, go with the program. I'm not disagreeing with anything Karen says. I'm just saying that this is the way that I look at things, because you're right. You have to have these conversations with your critic and get to the point where it's like, okay, buddy, we're doing this, right? Are you with me, critic? Let's get going. So like, I completely see the value in what you're saying. I'm just saying that my approach is more like, and I have people say this to me, Deb, I was gonna kick myself for having too much free time. And then I heard your voice in my head and I felt much better. So that's one way to look at it. And then a couple other just little things that you can do. Like I said before, the D in the Deb method is determine your mission. So the first section of my book goes through the things you need to do for that. So you start with visualization, write your current bio, future bio, then you determine your mission statement. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What purpose does it serve? How does it help others? And then from that, you write a motto, like your theme. It could be a theme song, it could be a phrase. Mine is goal setting simplified, because everything I do in some way, shape, or form relates to it. I think changing your life is going to be challenging enough. The instructions for how to change your life shouldn't be, which is why, Deb Method is so user friendly. Your goal guide is so user friendly. So if your mission is be creative, create art, as long as you're keeping that in focus, whatever wins you get in accomplishing that each day or each week, write them down and celebrate them, because they're going to also keep you motivated to moving forward. So there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you.
Hey, Joe, did you have something you wanted to ask or say?
Yeah, this may, just a couple of different things that you guys are both pointing to. I'm a little further up the age continuum. I'm 72. So I've been through my career, I've written many books, but the first half of my life, I was kind of more like Deb, I think, in the sense that I had all these goals and to-do lists and, they'd start on the wall and go all the way to the bottom. And I've always had this illusion that I was getting somewhere. I had this sense of I'm accomplishing things because I got something checked off my list. And probably because I grew up that way. I grew up on the farm. And when we walked down the stairs in the morning, on the landing, there was a big blackboard and had each of the kids' names and our list of to-dos before we could go play. So I had it really seared in my mind that my value as a person was based on what I did, what I accomplished. And that really created decades of building my ego, getting graduate degrees and becoming a clinical psychologist and starting a private practice and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I think I somewhere midlife, I really discovered that I could trust this true self, you could call it, this spiritual essence, this true essence of who we are, that's now my timer. That's my dinger. That's my alert button. That's my schedule management. And that if I really listen, take the time, and I journal. I don't journal every day. It's not a routine. But whenever I don't know my direction, whenever I'm unclear, I sit down with my journal and I say, okay, true essence, divine self, true self, what do I have to say about this? Like, for example, Brenda, with the new title of the book, Thriving in, what's the name of my book here? Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane. I just got a new title. What has been the transformation principle, but it's now Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane, which I love, by the way, and I think that's great. But what when I was feeling really stuck about it, if I just sit down and write with my journal, it was like listening, asking the question, a true question, and then trusting that this true essence of who we are, we can trust to give us the answer. And that gives us the timing, that gives us what's first on the list, second on the list. And so that's kind of taken a lot of that extra workload off of my life of trying to structure my life or organize my life and have goals and all that. I'm really following almost an inner guide. This true essence of who I am is guiding me, and that's what guides my creative flow. So sometimes that means taking the day off and going paddleboarding like I did yesterday. It's a beautiful day. Today is kind of rainy and gloomy, so today is a writing day. So sometimes the weather guides that, but it's really by really deeply listening and trusting my own source of wisdom and insight, guidance and timing. And I think that's the constant that we all have. We all have a true self. We all have wisdom. We all have insight. And when we learn to really respect and trust that, we are uniquely guided. How Karen's going to be guided, or Linda, or Marlene, is it Marlene Dial? Marlene?
Marlena?
Marlena. Okay, I can't read your thing then. We all have a unique path. We all have a unique purpose. We all have changing purposes. But when we're really true to that and we listen to that, rather than what we've been programmed or taught or told that we should do, that when we listen to that, there's a perfect timing, a divine timing. So for the first 30 years, 35 years of my life, it was a struggle. The next 35 years, it has just been this flow. And that's when my business, my career took off, was when I started really just being myself and following that guidance. And I get off track. I still get caught up in my old program thinking, oh, I should be doing this. God, how come I haven't gotten this book written yet? Or, but I just know to ignore that. I just know, don't listen to your ego. that's just your thinking, and it'll pass. And when my mind gets quiet and I can hear that still small voice of truth, of wisdom, of insight, there's something about that makes everything click and fall into place. So it feels effortless. It's an effortless flow to my writing, or to learning the guitar, or working with a client. I do a lot of coaching and counseling of people, giving a talk. If I'm having to give a talk, I just write in my journal, what do I have to say about this? And all of a sudden it'll just come out in a way. But then when I walk in to give the talk, I forget everything I got. And I just let it come out fresh. So when we speak from the heart, and we work from the heart, and we live from the heart, that divine essence does the heavy lifting. The work is kind of done for us, and we just get to have joy. So that's how I see it.
You've been directed journaling, Joe.
I love journaling. Oh, is that what? Okay.
But it's the whole essence of the journaling with purpose is exactly the point. You're listening to who you are, what you love, what drives you, and that is, total gold stars. That's all.
So Marlene, and then I'm sorry.
I always wanted to have those gold stars.
I have them. If we were in person, you would get one. I promise.
I remember we used to have gold, silver, red, green, yellow stars.
Yep, that's me.
Marlena, and then I'm so sorry, forget your name. iPhone, beautiful lady.
Samita.
Okay, how about we'll have Marlena go, and then we'll have you say what you were going to say.
Joe, I couldn't agree with you more about the divine essence and the true essence, but I believe, as my teacher, my spiritual teacher, Richert Belul would say, that you must first develop the goals that your ego sets. You have to develop that foundation in the first half of life in order to really access the essence. If you try to jump without first developing those goals, then you might always think, well, but if I had that car, or if I had that house, or if I had that successful job, I'd be happy. But once you have all those successful things and you're still not really happy, is when you can access what's really true for you. And that is at least Richert Belul's argument. It's Falling Upward is his book. And it's a fabulous treatment of this whole first half of life, second half of life thing. I think it really speaks to your point, Joe.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's kind of how it happened for me. But I work a lot with young kids and school systems, and helping them to discover this really early. It's amazing what happens.
Yeah, but it may be all good that the first half of life is all about, as Deb said, all of the goals, or as they were on your stairwell, following that first, learning how to do that first may be really important to accessing the other.
Maybe.
What did you say, Alita?
Samita.
Anita, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just thought it was really cool because to me, everything is just a cycle. So what everyone is saying is just like a different part of the cycle. Like you have to learn those certain things about yourself so that you can learn other things about yourself. And then you find your method of what works for you. And that's how you learn how to listen to yourself when it just doesn't feel right for what works for you.
Nice.
I also think there's I can't speak to this super succinctly, but the idea that feminine energy flows differently than masculine energy. We have both. And that like being productive and having schedules and like all of that is masculine energy, and it serves. Feminine energy is cyclical. It's like what Samita just said, it's it flows differently. And it, you know, how can we honor both? How can we have both in our lives and not just being more dominated by masculine energy, which I think Joe spoke to eloquently.
I hope I'm getting more feminine energy. I think it works a lot better.
It does. For some things, yeah.
We do too.
Oh, Kamala.
Elise, what were you going to say?
I wanted to just presence, I'm a gerontologist and also an author, and the life course and kind of the non-linear aspect of, when you said stars, I was like, I have some stars. And I work with older adults, but I also teach kids yoga. And I used to think like it doesn't quite match up, but we all have an inner child, whatever age we're at. And we all have that part of us that loves, you know, when I taught, I had these because I taught in person. Now I teach kids online. And I actually love that because it forces me to be like a little kid, and I have to act for the camera because it's a lot harder to teach kids yoga when you're, you know, just here.
Not
So I'll
there,
put things
right?
in front of the camera and I'll just be silly. And I find it's a healing for me. So that's what I could offer. Like, we have all these things inside of us, and it's a kaleidoscope.
When I lead in-person workshops, and I've been leading goal setting groups for years ago, someone said, where's my gold star? So I started bringing gold stars. And when I do the in-person workshops, I say, you've chosen yourself today. So everybody gets a gold star, because that by prioritizing the life that you want, as it's opposed to the life you have, maybe it's in concert, you know, but what it all comes down to, whether it's creativity, changing your life course, choosing a passion project, you're choosing you when you choose to follow. I call it Goldtopia. That's when you're living the life you want and achieving your goals. By choosing to make plans for the future you want, you're choosing yourself, and that's total gold star worthy.
Thank you. It is 2:30, and this hour was so great. I love all the different places that we got to go, and I'm so grateful. Brenda started something a number of months ago. If anybody has to hop off, please do, because I know we said we'd end at 2:30. But Brenda started something where we just invite everyone who wants to share a takeaway, an insight, an intention from this time we've spent together. And so if you can stay, we'll do that. It'll only take a few minutes. And we'll just have, I'll just have Brenda start, and then she'll pass the mic to the next person. Brenda, are you okay with starting?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I loved what Joe was saying about having the true self be the reminder, be the timekeeper, and I really need to listen to my inner voice more, because I do push myself, you know, just because like my job is big, I love it, but it's big. It takes a lot of time, and sometimes I will just force myself, and that's probably not good. So I will set the intention that from now on, as inspired by this group and this hour, that I will listen to my inner voice and honor that, and encourage others to do that. And I will pass the mic to Karen.
I have stage fright. I'm going to pass for now to Joe.
I have stage fright too. No. I actually used to. Well, I just want to say how grateful I am to, thanks for inviting me, Brenda, to come to this and be a part of Mango. And I just feel very, very hopeful for our world right now, that I feel like we're on the precipice of a major era change. And all of the pain and all of the chaos and all of the suffering that we're in is purposeful. That it's a way of waking us all up to a whole new paradigm, a whole new way of being. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be able to write and to share with other writers like yourselves and learn from each other and encourage each other and support one another, because the world needs a lot of help right now. It needs a lot of love and a lot of compassion and most of all, a lot of understanding for how we can all listen to ourselves, because when we listen, we can recreate a new world. And we certainly need that right now. So thank you.
Do you want to pass the mic to someone?
That's my goal, Deborah, for humanity. Gold star.
Or do you want to pass the mic to someone?
Oh, I have to pass it to somebody.
You get to.
Hi, Rachel. You, Rachel.
Oh, Rachel, you're muted, honey.
All right. Well, for me, I have been feeling very, very pulled to like just a calling. I've felt a calling to align with love, abundance, and peace, and to bring as many people as I can with me. So my intention is to keep doing what I'm doing daily to do that, and keep doing, because it brings just such love and peace to my heart doing like what I'm doing right now. And just watching it all unfold, and like Joe said, I'm listening to that inner guidance in me that's just leading me right now. So it's been amazing, and I'm gonna keep doing that because that's where I'm supposed to go right now, and I know it. So I'll keep doing that, and I will pass it to Linda.
Thank you. For me, I mean, my whole intention in taking this time for creativity, and now I've transformed it into what I'm going to do all the time instead of just this block of time, has always been to follow that inner guidance. And for me, I call it my heart compass. And the logo, that's everything that I work with is around that heart compass, including jewelry that I'm making. So these sessions, that's what drew me to these sessions in the first place, was that inner compass. And they help me remember to refocus on that, because there are so many things that we're transitioning through as a world right now that draw my attention, because I want to make sure everybody's okay, which of course isn't my job, but I still feel drawn to that. And so this really helps me refocus on that internal guidance, that heart compass, and to always choose from there and to create from there, which is my goal anyway. So thank you for helping me refocus on that every week. I will pass it to Elise.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed hearing everybody today, and I'm really glad it came on. And I just want to reiterate a heart compass, listening to my true self. It's something that I consciously know and try to practice, but just being with everybody and having that reflected back is something you can't put in a bottle, hearing your voices. And even I love when Karen said, I'm having stage fright, because I can totally relate to that too. And so I just want to say, yay, someone presents that, because we're on Zoom so much and it's like, do I have to talk? So thank you.
Like, I don't want to say anything right now. Thanks.
Love it.
Elise, did you want to pass the mic to someone?
Yes, thank you. I will pass to, I don't know your name, iPhone, I think it's also been asked. Samita, thank you, Samita.
Sorry, I'm gonna change that. I didn't know it said iPhone. I hate that I missed a lot of it, because it sounds like it would have been really good to hear a lot more of what everyone is thinking, because it's really comforting for my own mind to hear pieces of everyone's thoughts that tie into my own personal theories. So that was really nice to experience.
Nice. Thank you.
Who else can I pass it to?
Is Deb? I think Deb is the last.
Are you?
Well, I mean,
Do you want to go, Sherry, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Deb. You go.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to speak today, and thanks to Karen for being on this panel with me, because this is how we learn, being with different people. And it's gonna sound gooey. I so love being a Mango author. Thank you, Brenda. Because it's really from the first email that I got from Brenda, and I looked up Mango, I'm like, these are so many people. So I feel so blessed to be part of this community and to be, sharing this time with everyone today. My intention is really to continue to help people embrace this change that everybody has to face. And like I said, I love meeting new people. I put my contacts in the chat, so if we're not already connected, please connect with me. My intention and my intention for you all is for us to be happy and healthy and keep spreading messages that help other people get to their next level, because I agree with Joe. Things are going to change, and optimist, it's got to be for the better, because there's been so much worse. So we just need to keep doing our part to bring better into the world and help the way in which we can.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
to Sherry.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. I love that Joe introduced the true essence piece of it. And when you were saying that, I was thinking there's also, for me, there's my own personal sort of true essence that comes out. And then there's sort of a collective that I feel fortunate to get to be a part of. And this group is one of those. And I just love today that, again, that the essence comes forward of, we got to see a lot of different angles today. And like Deborah said, we got to learn from each other. And I think that's just what I'm so grateful for. I'm grateful that you guys all took the time to show up, and that you got to share things that were at top of your mind. And it changes me every week. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful. So as we close out, special thank you again to Deb and Karen for being our guest authors today, and to Brenda for bringing us all together under this wonderful umbrella, and to all of you, to each of you who showed up. And it matters. I love that. It's beautiful to see whoever's here each week, to hear what you have to share, and it really makes a difference. So thank you. Thank you so much. We're here every Wednesday at this time, so please come back. We'd love to see you again. And in the meantime, have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, and thank you, Krishna. I forgot. You've been kind of behind the scenes, but thank you for setting us all up and sending us off on our own now. Bye, everybody.
Bye.